Imagine being a little girl living in a remote paradise where danger hides in plain sight. Here, Komodo dragons roam freely, their massive frames blending with the wilderness. One sunny afternoon, as you play with your friends, the unimaginable happens. A Komodo dragon strikes, its razor-sharp teeth sinking into your skin, and its prehistoric force dragging you through the dirt as your screams fill the air. This nightmare was the reality for Lina Marasa, but what happened after the attack was even more terrifying. It was June 2011, and the scorching dry season on Rinca Island, a remote Indonesian island near Komodo, had reached its peak. This small, rugged island was less known than its famous neighbor Komodo Island, but it harbored its own population of the deadly Komodo dragons. With a lower human population and a wilder landscape, the dragons roamed freely, blending seamlessly into their environment. The Komodo dragon is the largest and heaviest lizard species in the world, with roots tracing back millions of years. These ancient predators inhabit only a handful of Indonesian islands, including Komodo, Rinca, Flores, and Gili Motong. While they may appear sluggish at a glance, they are anything but harmless. Their bite is highly toxic, not due to bacteria as once believed, but because of venom glands located in their lower jaws. The venom, a mix of toxic proteins, prevents blood clotting, causes muscular paralysis, drops blood pressure, and includes hypothermia. Combined with their serrated teeth that tear through flesh, their attacks often lead to massive blood loss and shock. Surviving such an assault is rare, and both visitors and locals must remain vigilant when navigating these otherwise picturesque islands. The heat was unbearable that morning, but life on Rinca carried on. Most of the adults were out fishing or tending to chores, leaving the village square to the children who sought any way to entertain themselves. Among them was 8-year-old Lina Marasa, a spirited girl known for her curiosity and boundless energy. Lina was spending the day skipping rope with her cousins and friends near the village well. Laughter echoed across the square as the children competed to see who could jump the most without tripping, the sunlight glinting off the well's polished stone rim. Unbeknownst to the children, a 9-foot, 280-pound Komodo dragon lay hidden nearby, its massive body concealed beneath a patch of sun-scorched underbrush. The dragon had been prowling the outskirts of the village since dawn, drawn by the scent of livestock and the faint aroma of food. The lack of prey on the island had driven it to the brink of starvation. Though these dragons rarely targeted humans, the desperation of hunger often blurred those boundaries. After nearly an hour of intense jumping and giggles, Lina's cousins paused for a break, but Lina couldn't resist one last round. With a determined smile, she picked up the rope and began skipping again, pushing herself to beat her personal record. The rapid movements and the rhythmic thud of the rope against the ground drew the dragon's attention. Its keen eyes locked onto Lina's small frame as it calculated the perfect moment to strike. Lina's cousins were still catching their breath when she stopped suddenly, calling out to them that she needed a quick break to grab water from the well. She placed her skipping rope on the ground and walked toward the nearby bushes to avoid interrupting the others as they rested. As she reached the foliage, she bent down to splash water onto her face and arms, unaware of the danger lurking just a few meters away. The Komodo dragon exploded from its hiding place with terrifying speed. Before Lina could react, it lunged at her, sinking its razor-sharp teeth into her shoulder and side. Her scream pierced the air, freezing the other children in terror. The immense force of the attack dragged Lina off her feet, her body thrashing as the dragon's powerful jaws clamped tighter. The villagers heard her cries and rushed toward the chaos. Lina's cousins screamed for help as they watched the dragon shake her violently, its serrated teeth tearing through her side and back. The beast's head whipped back and forth, flinging blood and pieces of her torn dress into the dust. Despite the villagers' frantic efforts to scare the animal off with rocks, sticks, and even buckets of water from the well, the dragon refused to release its grip. It dragged Lena several meters toward the bushes, leaving a gruesome trail of blood in its wake. By the time the villagers closed in, the Komodo dragon had ripped her lower torso apart, taking her legs and hips with it as it retreated into the jungle. Lena's upper body remained behind, barely clinging to life. Several villagers knelt by her side, desperately trying to stem the bleeding with strips of cloth and clothing. Lena's breathing was shallow, her face pale, and her eyes wide with shock. Despite their efforts, the girl succumbed to her injuries within minutes, her lifeless body cradled by her weeping mother. Emergency responders arrived too late to save Lena. Instead, they assisted in searching for the dragon responsible. Though the villagers scoured the jungle for days, armed with machetes and sharpened poles, the creature had disappeared into the dense wilderness. Identifying the culprit among the many Komodo dragons on the island was impossible. The tragedy left the village heartbroken and terrified, especially as they realized the dragon's taste for human flesh meant it might strike again. Lena Marasa's untimely death served as a grim reminder of the danger posed by the ancient predators that shared their home. But Lena's story, horrifying as it was, had witnesses, people who saw the attack unfold and tried desperately to save her. But what happens when there are no screams, no frantic attempts at rescue, and no one left to recount what truly happened? Such was the fate of a Swiss nobleman who vanished one fateful July day in the unforgiving wilderness of Komodo Island. It was July 18, 1974, and the sweltering heat of Komodo Island baked the arid hills in Indonesia's remote Lesser Sunda chain. Baron Rudolf von Reding-Bibereg, a 74-year-old Swiss nobleman, had set out that morning with a group of adventure-seeking tourists. Their destination was the island's most fearsome inhabitant, the Komodo dragon. For the Baron, this was more than just a trip, it was the culmination of his fascination with the natural world. The dragons were living relics of a prehistoric age, and the chance to see them in their wild habitat was a dream come true for Rudolf. Yet, despite his enthusiasm, no one in the group could have anticipated that by the day's end, the Baron would become part of one of the most chilling tales ever told on Komodo Island. Born in 1900, Baron Rudolf von Reding-Bibereg was a Swiss nobleman with a profound appreciation for nature's wonders, and was no stranger to exploration. Yet, even with a lifetime of travel behind him, Komodo Island offered something truly extraordinary, a chance to see creatures that had survived unchanged for millions of years, a living link to Earth's prehistoric past. The dragons, mysterious and deadly, were a rare sight even in the 1970s, drawing only the most intrepid travelers. For the Baron, the journey seemed to embody his passion for exploration and his desire to experience the wild in its purest, most untamed form. But this fascination which brought him to Komodo Island would ultimately lead to his mysterious demise. The group arrived from the island of Flores that morning, stepping onto the barren, sun-scorched beach on Komodo Island, surrounded by rugged hills. The air was thick and still, broken only by the faint rustle of dry leaves carried on the wind. Armed with goat meat to lure the dragons, the tourists ventured cautiously into the harsh terrain, eager for their first glimpse of the island's legendary predators. Komodo dragons are creatures straight out of nightmares, with extremely sharp, jagged teeth capable of tearing flesh from bone and a venomous bite that can cause severe internal bleeding. These reptiles are among the most fearsome predators on Earth. Found on only 5 Indonesian islands, including Komodo and Flores, their population is estimated at just 4,000 individuals. Despite their reputation as scavengers, capable of consuming up to 80% of their body weight in one meal, they are also skilled hunters, taking down prey as small as birds and as large as water buffalo. This combination of deadly efficiency and unmatched adaptability has made the Komodo dragon a living relic of a prehistoric world, drawing adventurers and thrill seekers from across the globe to witness them in the wild. It didn't take long for the group to encounter the island's infamous predators. From the shadows of the hills, the dragons emerged, massive, muscular forms exuding a primal power that was both mesmerizing and terrifying. Their forked tongues flicked in the air, detecting the scent of flesh as they moved closer with an unnerving blend of grace and menace. Drawn to the bait, they descended upon the goat meat, tearing through it with ruthless efficiency. The Baron stood transfixed, unable to look away from the brutal prehistoric feeding frenzy that had the entire group frozen in silent awe. With the dragons finally retreated, the tourist returned to the beach for lunch, exhilarated by the encounter but still wary of the predators. Baron Rudolf von Reding-Bibereg chose not to join them, informing the group that he intended to head back to the boat. His figure was seen walking away, but what happened next remains a mystery. It was the last time anyone would see him alive. Hours later, the group prepared to leave but quickly realized the Baron was missing. Panic set in as they searched the area, calling his name, but the only sound that met them was the relentless wind. With daylight fading and supplies running low, they had no choice but to leave the island and report his disappearance to authorities. A sense of dread followed them back to Flores, a haunting premonition of what had likely occurred. The next day, a large search party combed the island's harsh terrain. For hours, they found nothing but silence and emptiness. Finally, high in the hills, far from where the group had ventured, they discovered two ominous clues: the Baron's broken glasses and his shattered camera. No body, no clothing, and no further traces of him were ever found. The exact circumstances of Baron Rudolf von Reding-Bibereg's disappearance remain shrouded in mystery, fueling decades of speculation and grim theories. Experts suggest that a Komodo dragon drawn by the Baron's scent as he walked alone through the arid terrain may have silently stalked him. These apex predators possess an extraordinary ability to detect prey from several kilometers away using their forked tongues, making an unaccompanied human an easy target. If a dragon decided to strike, the attack would have been swift and devastating. Its serrated teeth, designed to tear flesh and crush bone, would have inflicted catastrophic injuries in mere moments. Komodo dragons also deliver a venomous bite that causes rapid blood loss and shock, leaving prey weakened and vulnerable. Once incapacitated, the Baron could have been dragged into the dense underbrush, where more dragons attracted by the scent of blood might have joined in, reducing his body to nothing within hours. The efficiency of these creatures as predators is chilling. They are capable of devouring every trace of their prey, including bones and skin. Without eyewitness accounts, physical remains, or definitive evidence, the Baron's fate is left to informed speculation. What is certain, however, is that the isolation and dangers of Komodo Island made him exceptionally vulnerable to its fearsome inhabitants. His tragic end is a stark reminder of nature's unyielding power and the risks of venturing into the realm of such formidable predators. Today, the site where his belongings were found is marked by a simple monument known as Rudolph Hill. It stands as a solemn reminder of the risks posed by the wild, untamed corners of the world. Baron Rudolf von Reding-Bibereg's disappearance in 1974 is widely regarded as the first recorded death attributed to a Komodo dragon, bringing international attention to the dangers of these ancient predators. In 2017, a photographer captivated by the same fascination that drew the ill-fated Baron to Komodo Island ventured too close. What began as a tourist innocent photography trip turned into a bloodbath, an encounter so shocking that it would reignite fears of Komodo Island's ancient predators and their deadly power. On May 3, 2017, Komodo Island's rugged hills loomed under the rising sun, the air heavy with the weight of the wild. Among the few visitors that day was 68-year-old Singaporean photographer Lo Liaik. eager to explore the remote terrain and capture the essence of this untamed place through his camera lens. But what began as a routine morning hike quickly turned into a moment that would make him part of Komodo Island's dark and unforgettable history. Lo Liaik was no stranger to adventure. Born and raised in Singapore, he had spent much of his life cultivating a passion for photography and travel. At 68, Lo had built a reputation for his dedication to capture nature in its rawest form. Friends described him as quiet yet determined, a man who could wait for hours to get the perfect shot. For Lo, this journey was a chance to document one of nature's most awe-inspiring creatures, the Komodo dragon. These reptiles are among the most resilient predators on Earth. Despite their massive size reaching lengths of 10 feet and weights exceeding 200 pounds, Komodo dragons are astonishingly agile. They're capable of sprinting short distances at speeds of up to 12 miles per hour, climbing trees and swimming between islands. Their ability to silently stalk prey makes them even more deadly. Found only on 5 Indonesian islands, they're both an evolutionary marvel and a symbol of untamed wilderness. Lo knew the risks, but his fascination with these ancient creatures outweighed any sense of caution. He arrived at Komodo National Park the day before the attack, accompanied by a local guide who showed him a few dragons. While impressive, their sluggish demeanor left Lo wanting more. The dragons seemed too familiar with human presence, lacking the raw energy he hoped to capture through his lens. Determined to find a more dynamic subject, he decided to venture out alone the next morning. Lo climbed a nearby hill, drawn by the panoramic views and the quiet solitude. The short grass gave him a sense of security, as he believed he would spot any approaching danger in time. Focused on photographing the rugged landscape, he was oblivious to the silent approach of a young Komodo dragon. Using its forked tongue to detect chemical signals in the air, the dragon had tracked him from a distance, drawn by his presence. Without warning, the creature lunged. Its claws dug into Lo's leg as it bit down with incredible force. The attack was over in seconds, but the damage was done. Blood poured from the wound, soaking into the dry earth. Lo only had time to glimpse the dragon's shadow as it struck and retreated, leaving him injured and alone. Isolated on the hill, Lo faced an unimaginable situation. The nearest settlement, Komodo Village, was 650 feet downhill, a distance that now seemed impossible in his condition. His leg throbbed with searing pain as blood continued to pour from the deep wound, a result of the dragon's venomous saliva, which has anticoagulant properties. Each step was a battle against both his injury and the harsh reality of the island's unforgiving landscape. Jagged rocks and uneven ground forced him to carefully balance on his uninjured leg, hopping forward in agonizing bursts. The tropical heat bore down on him, adding to his exhaustion, and every call for help felt weaker than the last as his energy drained with alarming speed. As he neared the village, Lo's faint, desperate cries finally reached the ears of the local residents. Though they shared their home with Komodo dragons, none had ever encountered the horror of an attack. Dropping their tools and rushing toward the sound, they found Lo staggering forward, pale and drenched in sweat, with blood streaming from his leg. His strength was failing, and the grim trail of blood behind him told them everything they needed to know. Time was running out. The men carried him to a shaded spot where the village midwife stepped in, her hands steady despite the gravity of the moment. She worked quickly, cleaning the wound to stem the relentless flow of blood, her basic tools a fragile shield against the looming threat of infection. While she worked, the villagers scrambled to prepare a boat, their voices urgent as they pieced together the only plan that might save him. The 2-hour journey across open water to the hospital on Flores Island was his only chance, but it was a slim one. Every passing second tightened the grip of danger, the remote wilderness offering no guarantees of survival. Yet, despite the odds, the villagers were determined to give Lo the slimmest thread of hope to cling to. The ride was grueling, but Lo remained conscious, determined to reach safety. Upon his arrival at Siloam Hospital in Labuan Bajo, Lo was rushed into emergency care. The severity of his injuries was immediately apparent, with the deep gash in his leg requiring urgent attention to prevent further blood loss or infection. The medical team worked quickly, carefully cleaning the wound to remove any debris or traces of bacteria carried by the Komodo dragon's bite. Over the next hour, they meticulously closed the jagged tear with 43 stitches, an effort that required precision given the extent of the damage. Against all odds, Lo survived. The attack was the first reported on a foreign tourist in over 40 years, the last being the disappearance of Baron Rudolf von Reding-Bibereg in 1974. Park officials reiterated the importance of safety protocols, emphasizing the risks of venturing into dragon territory without a guide. They also noted that the attack occurred during mating season, a time when dragons are more aggressive. Today, Komodo National Park remains a place where the boundaries between human curiosity and primal wilderness blur. Lowly Ike's ordeal is etched into the island's lore, a story that illustrates the unpredictable encounters that can unfold in one of the last strongholds of untamed nature. The wilderness of Komodo National Park holds many dangers, but what happens when that danger crosses the threshold into the safety of home? On Rinca Island, the primal fear of something lurking just beyond the shadows became a fisherman's waking nightmare. A Komodo dragon, driven by hunger, crept from the darkness into his home, turning it into a blood-soaked scene of terror. It was a sweltering afternoon in August 2018 on Rinca Isle, part of Indonesia's Komodo National Park, where life often unfolds in harmony with the wild until it doesn't. For 35-year-old Taman, a fisherman in the quiet coastal village of Kalara, the day began like any other. His wife and children were away visiting relatives, leaving him to enjoy a rare moment of solitude. But as he settled in for a simple lunch in the stillness of his wooden home, something unseen and uninvited stirred in the shadows nearby. By the day's end, Taman would find himself locked in a battle for his life against a predator unlike any other. Taman was a cornerstone of the small, tight-knit village of Kalara. Known for his warm smile and steady demeanor, he was not only a skilled fisherman but also someone the community often turned to in times of need. Whether helping repair a neighbor's boat or lending a hand at village gatherings, Taman's generosity had earned him the respect and affection of his fellow villagers. A devoted husband and father of two, he took pride in providing for his family, rising before dawn each day to cast his nets in the waters that surrounded Rinca Isle. Though his life was humble, Taman's quiet determination and strong sense of duty made him a beloved figure in Kalara, a man who embodied the resilience required to thrive in a place where the wild was never far away. That day, Taman's wife had taken their children to visit relatives in a nearby village, leaving him alone for the day, a rare occasion for the busy fisherman. The house felt unusually quiet. The only sounds were the soft rustle of leaves outside and the gentle lapping of waves against the shore. Taman took advantage of the stillness to tend to his fishing nets, methodically cleaning and inspecting them for tears before setting them neatly in the corner. With his chores complete, Taman prepared a simple lunch of grilled fish and rice, seasoned lightly with spices his wife had packed for him. As he sat down at the wooden table, the aroma of the meal filled the room, carried by the warm breeze that flowed through the open window. He savored the moment, grateful for the chance to enjoy a peaceful meal after a long morning at sea. But the scent carried farther than Taman realized. Hidden in the dusty underbrush nearby, a 9-foot Komodo dragon had picked up the aroma, its forked tongue tasting the air for the source of the tantalizing meal. Hungry and emboldened by the quiet surroundings, the dragon began lumbering toward Taman's home. Its powerful claws scraped against the wooden steps as it climbed, the sound blending with the faint rustle of the wind. Taman froze as he heard the creak of floorboards and a low, heavy breathing. Turning toward the sound, his heart raced as the dragon's massive head appeared in the doorway. Its tongue flicked in and out, tasting the scent of food and prey. Stories of dragons entering homes had circulated in the village, but they had always felt like distant legends, until now, with one of these creatures standing mere feet away, its unblinking eyes fixed on the room before it. The attack came without warning. The dragon surged forward, knocking over the table in its path. Taman scrambled to his feet, his chair clattering to the floor as he grabbed the first thing he could find and hit the dragon across its snout. But the strike only seemed to anger the predator. It hissed and lunged, its serrated teeth clamping down on his left calf. The pain was instant and blinding, and Taman collapsed to the floor as blood pooled around him. The dragon began dragging him toward the door, its jaws locked on his leg. Desperate to survive, Taman reached for a sturdy wooden chair and wedged it against the doorway, anchoring himself against the beast's strength. The dragon thrashed and hissed, shaking its head violently to free him from the chair's grip, but Taman held on with all his might. The commotion soon drew the attention of neighbors. Arif, a local farmer, was the first to arrive. Seeing the horrific scene, he grabbed his machete and shouted to distract the dragon, swinging the blade in wide arcs to create noise. The dragon released Taman's leg, momentarily fixating on a new threat. Taman seized the chance, crawling back inside the house and pulling his injured leg behind him. By now, more villagers had gathered, armed with sticks, pots, and anything they could find. They formed a line, shouting and throwing rocks to drive the dragon out of the house. Reluctantly, it retreated into the jungle, but the scent of blood had already drawn 2 more dragons which circled the yard with their tongues flicking, eager to feed. The villagers knew time was running out. Forming a protective barrier around the house, they kept the dragons at bay while 2 men carried Taman to safety. He was quickly transported to the local medical post where the small medical team worked urgently to stabilize him. Using a tourniquet and administering fluids, they managed to slow his blood loss, but the threat of infection from the Komodo dragon's bacteria-laden bite remained high. Realizing his condition required more advanced care, the villagers arranged for his transfer to a larger medical facility, giving him the best chance of survival. The journey to the hospital was grueling. Blood loss and the stifling tropical heat left Taman weak, his body battling against the venom and bacteria introduced by the dragon's bite. At the hospital, doctors moved quickly, administering powerful antibiotics to fight infection and carefully stitching the deep gash in his leg. Over the next 2 weeks, Taman's condition gradually improved, though the attack left lasting physical and emotional scars that would stay with him for years to come. When Taman finally returned home, the village had changed. His neighbors had reinforced their homes with stronger doors and began storing food farther from their living spaces to avoid attracting dragons. For Taman, the sight of his house brought back vivid memories of the attack. Though his leg had healed, the limp he carried for months afterward haunted him, a reminder of how close he came to death. On Rinka Island, humans and dragons have shared the land for centuries, but this coexistence is a delicate balance. Taman's story is one of survival, but it's also a sign of the untamed power of these ancient predators. In places like this, the dragons are more than a symbol of the wild. They are a living force, a reminder that here, humans do not always hold dominion. Thank you for joining us through these horrifying encounters with one of the world's oldest predators. If these stories left you shocked, the next video will make your blood run cold. In March 2009, 31-year-old Muhammad Anwar climbed a tree to escape 2 Komodo dragons stalking him below. But after hours in the unforgiving sun, exhaustion set in and he fell straight into the jaws of the waiting predators. Click now to uncover the horrifying details of his desperate final moment, and we'll see you there.